Welcome back to TartleCast. And to understand what's occurring today, we have to look back at our past.
I'll look back. We have to look back at the data to understand how we ended up where we are now.
So,
past human data is a predictor of future. I mean, we repeat cycles and patterns unless we've evolved.
And that's where those intricacies of data today help us see how we're doing those microevolutions.
Yeah, and there's this little part on the map up there that was a long time ago, as you guys can see. It was called, and I want to start this. We're going to talk about, and I don't want to bore you guys. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a history lesson. I'm going to use the word macroeconomics. There's a futurist macroeconomics person out there where a lot of this material came from is Raoul Pal is his name, and he's on CNBC and all these different areas. And, hedge fund managers pay him big money for him to give his macroeconomics analysis. He tries to put these puzzle pieces together, and he can't quite figure it out because he doesn't know TARTLE. He hasn't learned about TARTLE, and we've reached out to him before, and I'm going to reach out to him again because the puzzle pieces come together if you see TARTLE.
Yeah.
So I want people to understand this, and we're going to start in the late 1800s, 1900 with the British Empire. So the little old British Empire,
United Kingdom,
little tiny guy,
little tiny monarchy that was running itself for quite a long time.
Yeah, for a long time, began to break down.
Yeah, they're like, okay, this isn't doing too well. So now that we don't have like a ton of control over here on our British Isles, we got to expand. We need to, since we're losing power with saying that, okay, it's my God-given right to be king or queen. Well, now we have to put ourselves into financial power. So how do we get more of that? Oh, fantastic. Let's use our ships. Let's go imperialize things, right? Let's use our sphere of influence.
And we'll take over the world. Yeah,
we'll take over the world. Let's go to other places.
And that's what they did. They were influenced.
So what happens when, Jason,
here's what's happening. So they take over the world. They can't handle the systems that they put in place because it's too big of a reach.
Same thing happened to Rome.
Yeah, the same thing happened. And this will happen in the United States in
short order.
Country, China and everything. We'll get into all of the United States and China too.
Yep.
Lo and behold, the country right next to them, starts with a G, Germany, begins to rise in the early 1900s with industrial power.
Yeah, they're doing great. Their factories, everything they're making, what we thought were coffee makers, with like brawn and stuff like that, make your razor. They were making like military items. So
something happens majorly.
Yeah.
There's an archduke that gets shot.
Yeah. Well, how does it even get to that point?
Okay, yeah, here we go. Put the pieces in.
Okay, so before the outset of World War I, right, and there were a lot of expansion and people felt economic pressures within their countries in Europe at the time, politicians were making choices to split up certain countries to say, oh, we're going to nationalize this and not nationalize this. And then it goes against the culture of the people in the area, how they essentially recognize themselves with the land. So this underground group develops, called the Black Hand, right? The Austrian Black Hand. They were a Serbian Black Hand, was a terrorist group that had nationalistic aims to preserve an old way. They wanted to go against what was currently occurring with the politics. And they said, we, in our underground movement, which was also slightly a part of, a couple Masonic lodges there at the time, said, let's pull some of ourselves together, use some of this underground tactics, ritual rites and things like that to build a sub-powerful group where we can control what's going on with these monarchs, these ruling monarchs. So these Serbian terrorists, after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, right, in help due to what Britain was doing in their imperialism, after all these collapses, they're like, okay, how do we divide up all this stuff? Now that the power has left Europe and it's left to people in their own devices, what do we do? So they're like, we can't let these people split up these territories. The two nations of Austria-Hungary and Bosnia-Herzegovina, I don't even know if I said that right. We're trying to bring them together, but they're getting split up. And this dude who's kind of pushing it, the Archduke, Franz Ferdinand, we got to stop that. So, there's this big event, big parade going on. You got monarchs, right? Celebrate me, it's my God-given position. This group shows up and blasts the guy. Said, nah, dead. So this group, the Black Hand, then spurs this political mess that is occurring. And as this starts to prevail where these countries are getting split up, they have to seek alliances on the outside. We need support because there's an internal battle going on between these Eastern European empires. So we're going to need people to back us up. Oh, who jumps in first? Germany. Yeah, we'll come back you up on this side. You're close. We have some sort of economic trade with you. You know, we do agree with what the politicians and the monarchs in your areas were doing. Yeah, we'll hop with you guys. And so then what happens? World War I.
Yes, and 20 million people died in World War I. And it wasn't anything but technology that killed them. This was the battle of tech. This was when tech first hit hardcore, and it was able to wipe mass amounts of people out in one fell swoop.
So
tech would just...
What was the early tech? They had mustard gas.
Yes.
So the technology and chemistry was evolving. Trench warfare was a new type of technology. You know,
you had
like
new early tanks. I mean, yeah, you had early artillery.
Airplanes.
Yes.
Which would throw ropes and bricks and use surveillance.
Yes.
So all these things were evolving. So that means warfare actually became more targeted, more violent. The ease of which it was to kill somebody was much more seamless than going to battle face to face with horses and like throwing a javelin.
Yeah, instead it was like 1-to-1 or 1 to maybe a guy will kill 10 guys or whatever. This was like
the ratios changed.
A piece of technology could kill 1,000.
That's correct.
And so after you have that happen, the world leaders get together and say, we can't have World War I again. We can't have 20 million people die. So they sign a treaty.
Yeah, it was divisive.
Right.
It was, and then they said that the expansion, the support, the industrial support that Germany gave in the process of this technology and the war machines, we got to blame them. You guys are going to pay. So it was the Treaty of what?
Versailles.
Treaty of Versailles, which was originally put together by the League of Nations.
Yes.
Right? Which was this earlier idea before we had, the United Nations. League of Nations actually failed.
Right.
But the point was, we're going to make Germany pay.
Yeah, they wanted them to offset all the damage that the technology had caused that they created.
So the war reparations.
Right.
So all this industry that Germany had built then became depressed.
Yes.
It actually crushed the economy of Germany. And this agitated the German people.
Well, people don't realize, in today's terminology, it was $500 billion. Yeah. No country can pay that, especially back then.
People run around with wheelbarrows full of cash because the Deutschmark wasn't worth anything.
Yes, yeah. So Germany says they realize after a while that they can't pay. So they debase their currency. So when they're debasing their currency, we're going to talk about this later, what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
When they, and a lot of countries are doing this, when they debase their currency, hyperinflation.
Because the debt was too large.
Yes.
Versailles, we're going to impose some debt.
Yes.
You can't service it, so you have to print more.
Yeah.
So now your money's worth less.
Yes. And so they thought that if they debased the currency and printed a bunch more, they may be able to pay the debt back. But that created hyperinflation.
And then all your people in your country,
or
what are they going to do? They're going to rise up. They're going to become agitated.
Yeah, because it's an industrial country, and they have tons of factories. So these factory workers, they're getting paid pennies on the dollar. Nothing's happening. The country, Germany, collapses under this debt. And so you make this perfect swamp to allow this one person to rise out of the swamp.
Yeah. And he
created a perfect environment for this to happen.
And what's he saying? We know who to blame.
Yes.
These people. They did it.
Yeah.
And your old government, the one with on the auspices of the Ottoman Empire, which has collapsed, we need to blame them.
Yes.
Because they let Germany be attacked and belittled and made small when we are people of great power.
And so we have this man with the funny little mustache.
Yep, who writes a book, goes to prison.
Yes.
Right? Originally hung wallpaper.
Yeah. Failed artist.
Come from a Jewish family.
Yes.
Oh, this is really interesting.
He begins to give these amazing speeches, writes this book, gets the youth and others involved, and Hitler rises.
Correct. So just like in Serbia, this Black Hand group, this nationalist group, whereas in the underbelly, in the darkness that was occurring, this new one rises up and it takes to the streets.
And we must always realize this, whether it's World War I, World War II, or whatever, or now with Afghanistan, we spend trillions of dollars. Cost of war always destroys currency.
Every time.
Because you can't pay the bills of it.
No.
It becomes debt. We owe still for Afghanistan. There's mass amounts of debt that we have. The trillions of dollars that we spend in Afghanistan, that's all failed. We were over 20 years there.
Has the Civil War been paid off?
Yeah.
No. I actually think, I'm pretty sure it hasn't been paid off.
Yeah.
The Treasury issues these notes
Yes,
we can feed the war machine.
Yes.
But you got to pay into that.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one who's running this system.
Right.
So if you're going to overload it with debt, you got to pay it somehow because everybody else is working off the system, all 330 million people.
And this is crazy because this League of Nations, the Treaty of Versailles, actually what they thought was a good thing.
Yeah.
They were way unrealistic in it, created this nasty group, these fascists.
Yeah.
And
Democratic nationalists.
now we have World War II looming on the scene.
Yeah.
And World War II hits, 50 million people die.
Well, why? Because now the war machines spool up.
Oh, the tech?
And there's this nationalist pride that's driving these people to do things they otherwise wouldn't do, to create, build faster, be the strongest, pit someone against the other, say that person is evil. We need to work against them. They've taken from us. When you can get people culturally and emotionally like that, they'll do anything under the sun.
Yes.
What did Joseph Goebbels say? If
Yeah.
you tell a lie big enough
Yes.
and long enough,
Right.
people will soon believe it.
Yes.
And he was Hitler's head of propaganda.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what
he-
happens?
Yes. So 50 million people die. We all know the outcome of World War II, but here's the crazy part. They want to experience this New Deal. So they're going to have this New Deal come out. The New Deal on the monetary side of things is fiscal stimulus. This is where this gets introduced.
The first idea.
Because inflation was high. So I need to be creative. So what can I do? Well, let's use stimulus.
Yep.
So they stimulate the economy, especially here in the United States. It even gets worse because we come back, World War II, we're all happy. Suburbs are created.
Yep.
It's the late 1940s, 1950s, the golden era of America.
A boom on
1950s.
consumer goods.
Oh, we actually have, because this
Marketing.
goes back, because this is all going to go back to demographics.
Yeah.
We actually have the largest population boom ever in the history of the world. 78 million people are born. We get a 40% growth in the United States in 20 years.
Baby boomers. That's what it is.
They start having kids.
And they start buying products.
Yes.
And this wealth is occurring because there's stimulus. Money's just getting poured into this stuff.
Yes.
Marketing. Oh, by the way, where did all the good marketing come from? Oh, it came from Goebel and his cousins.
Well, even worse is the 1950s get stimulated from the tech from warfare.
That's exactly right.
And they get turned into consumer
Braun
goods.
coffee maker?
Yes.
Well, you can thank the Nazis for it, because that's where it came from.
The new washer and dryer, your new washer and dryer.
Yeah.
All of
that
this
BMW
began.
you owned?
Yes.
They made airplane engines.
Japan begins to do what with we begin to go over there and spool up their factories.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, this tech from warfare, it turns into consumer goods. So now you have not just a fiscal stimulus, central bankers are fiscally stimulating. You also have a manufacturing stimulus.
Oh, wait, so you have economic stimulus,
Yes.
manufacturing stimulus, and actual human life stimulus.
Yes.
There's so many people coming on the planet.
So I want people to think this is it's a boom, baby boomers, like you said. Then we turn around and the powers that be, the 1%ers, decide to create NATO,
Yep.
European Union,
Yep.
and they do a big thing that they call tariffs and trades. They make like a tariffs and trades act.
So why did we forget what happens when we put reparations on somebody?
Yes.
So what happens when I take these micro reparations and I start putting them everywhere?
Yes.
I start doing these tariffs.
Yes.
What are people going to do? They're going to counter that.
Yes.
Or they're going to take a path of least resistance. You're going to get the opposite of what you really wanted to happen.
So these 1%ers think, do we need to be done in
keep
part
going.
2? These 1%ers think, okay, global order's kept. We have economic interdependence now among nations.
Oh, because we're all
So
trading.
we're all trading now. So this is going to prevent World War III.
Yeah.
So far it has, but there's some huge problems that happen.
Well, why do they think it'll prevent World War III? The idea is that, no country would want to harm one another because we're now relying on one another.
Yes.
We don't want to upset pricing
Right.
or the price of the currencies. You see what I'm saying?
So we'll do a really quick recap, and then we're going to go into part 2 about why this is so important. You have World War I hit. It creates Hitler.
Yep.
World War II goes down. We have stimulus that hits. We have nations that are interdependent on each other. We have NATO, EU is happening. Huge boom United States becomes a powerhouse, not Britain anymore. United States is the powerhouse of the world.
Yep.
Monster boom, 40% population, going more than ever. Consumer goods being, you're living the highlight. We've got.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the 1950s commercials. Go on YouTube and watch 1950 commercials.
Are you kidding me?
Big Buicks.
Love it. Big driveway, white picket fence, golden retrievers. The American dream.
Barbecues.
Yeah, barbecues. Right.
Nice clothes.
Yeah.
So, and then we're gonna get into why you feel like you can't get ahead in your life and how Tartle solves that.
Love it.